I grew up in a military family. My dad was in the Air Force, and I was born on an Air Force base, which was wonderful. It was just such a good experience to be exposed to so many different types of people. I was 7 years old when we left Florida. We moved to West Germany, which was an incredible experience for me, living outside of the U.S. When I was 10, we moved to Denver, to Colorado, and I consider Colorado where I grew up. It was a fantastic place to grow up. But I've lived in 7 states in a foreign country, so sometimes people get confused when I start talking about, where I lived or when I lived here or there. I've lived in Florida, South Carolina, Colorado, California, Texas, and outside of Washington, D.C. in Maryland. And of course, now I live outside of Atlanta. I think it really just exposed me to diverse people and really inspired my love of people and my understanding that we're really more connected than we are separate, even when we can't see it. And there's a lot of power in finding common ground. I think that's probably one of the biggest things I learned growing up and being exposed to so many different places and people. My approach to teaching personal and leadership development is a combination of stories and research and inspiration. My mission is inspiring others to live more fulfilling lives, and so I think the best way that we learn is through the power of stories, and I love storytelling. I've always been a storyteller, even when I was very young, and so I like to really help people connect, because I think we connect through one another's stories. I'm very transparent in sharing my own. But I think it's so important to back those stories up and back up the inspiration with research. And I do that through positive psychology. I went back to grad school to study applied positive psychology at the University of Pennsylvania, which is the study of flourishing and what happens when things go right with people. What is it that causes us to be happier and more resilient and to tap into our strengths? And so I think it's a really unique combination of the inspiration, understanding, and helping people understand that what they want is possible, but there's a way to get there. And using the power of story and the power of research, I think, is especially effective in teaching what I teach, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Wow, my first big failure was my first year of college. I was accepted to one of the most challenging and prestigious universities in the country. My parents were so proud. I was so proud. And then I ended up spending the entire year on academic probation. It was so deflating. I was embarrassed. I lost a lot of confidence. But ultimately, I learned that failure can become one of life's greatest gifts. I came to realize that that wasn't the place for me, even though it was an honor. It wasn't where I was meant to be. And so sometimes I find that failure is truly a gift. It's something that pushes you in another direction, because sometimes in life, there's a door you go through and it's not the right door for you. But if the door stays open, you'll keep walking through it, even though it's not where you're supposed to be. So sometimes doors have to shut in order to redirect you to the right place. And so that first big failure for me took me several years to move through. In fact, it was my first book that was really the first time that I confronted it and shared it openly and stopped being embarrassed about it. That was huge and a big gift. I don't regret that first year of college. It helped shape me into a better person. It helped me get clearer that sometimes you walk away from things that can be good because there's something much better for you. What gave me the courage to quit my job the month I turned 24 and start my own business was answering the questions that were scaring me. They were what-if questions. What if I fail? What if I don't have enough experience? What if I'm too young? What if I'm not good enough? And it was all of that, but this opportunity was in front of me because people were asking for help. I was in marketing and PR, and I had the opportunity to start a PR firm. Part of the courage was just being young and knowing that Worst come to worst, I would go find another job. But what gave me the most courage is I knew from the time I was very young that I was entrepreneurial, and the excitement of starting a business fueled me. And so every time I would feel afraid, I would remind myself that, hey, this is your dream. Go for it. So the courage, I didn't always feel courageous. I felt afraid a lot. But I decided that that was just part of the deal, that I was going to feel afraid, and I was also going to pursue my dream. One night after work, early evening, I was on the phone with my mom when she just started complaining of a horrible headache. It was very sudden. I go like that because I know that that moment was the moment that a blood vessel actually burst in her brain. She had a massive brain aneurysm at 49 years old. I had never gone through something like that, someone so close to me. One of the many things it taught me, because my mother should have, by all medical accounts, died that night. She did not. She was in the hospital for 2 months. She lost all of her physical abilities, but she had this strength and this optimism that she would make it through, that she had to make it through. She had to make it through, not for me, because I was an adult, but my little brother was 8, and she held on to that. When I talk in positive psychology about the power of using your strengths, I think about my mom. Because her strength of gratitude for having made it through the aneurysm, even though her speech was slurred and her vision was impaired and she couldn't sit up and she was going to have to learn how to walk again and how to swallow again and all of these things. She kept in front of her this gratitude for the opportunity to get better. She found strength in knowing that she, at the time, had an 8-year-old son and she had to live for him. And so it taught me the strength of positive emotion to give you hope, to help you persevere through some of the most difficult problems that any of us could face. And it also taught me that purpose isn't just about what you do on a grand scale, mine being inspiring others to live more fulfilling lives, because I felt, oh, that's about me speaking on a platform or writing books. And what I learned during that time is that it's also what you do one-on-one. Because as my mother every day struggled physically, it impacted her mentally. And there was a threat of her slipping into depression. And what I figured out is my purpose in that season was inspiring that one woman. And so it gave me a lot of perspective on purpose going through that. I'm very happy and blessed to report that my mom made it through, that she still deals with some disabilities, but her vision and her speech and sitting up and swallowing, all that stuff came back. And I don't think it would have happened if she had not tapped into her strengths and to the power of her faith and her ability to focus on the positive, because that really pulled her forward. And frankly, it pulled me forward too. My biggest fear in life used to be divorce. Being a child of divorce, I was so afraid. I thought that was the worst thing that could possibly happen. And then I found it happening to me. That changed me profoundly, and it changed me in very good ways. I figured out that you can either be bitter or you can choose to be better when you go through the most difficult things. And the things that you fear most, that you think, oh my goodness, I could never make it through that, you can make it through. You can. And so I learned that it was essential that I keep my vision in front of me. My vision was for happy marriage and motherhood. And going through divorce in my late 30s dampened some of those dreams at first. But I decided that if the dream was in my heart, it could happen, but it would never happen if I didn't believe. So believing for marriage and motherhood in that season of my life, late in my 30s, really required me to dig deep for hope and for faith. And at times, to be honest, I felt so silly for hoping. I mean, really silly, especially when 40 happened. But I decided that giving up was not an option, and I'm so glad I did. Because I decided giving up was not an option, I kept my heart open, I kept myself open. And marriage, beautiful marriage, happy marriage happened. Children have happened. I have 2 bonus daughters and a son. So what I learned most from the thing I thought was my biggest fear is that I could conquer it. And I think that's a lesson all of us learn when we go through the difficulties. You know, you're still here. You're still here. If you're still here, you've made it through some things. And you should never, ever forget that. Faith has always played an important role in my life. I remember even as a child that was just a part of who I was. But I think as I got older, I really began wondering, what am I here for? You know, I believe that God uniquely creates all of us and that we all have a mission. And our job is to figure out what that mission is and to live it every single day. It's not just what you do in your job, it's about how you show up in the world and how people's lives are better because you're alive. I think when we tap into that, we tap into why we were divinely created, and we tap into what we're most passionate about. And so for me, faith played a huge role in what I do now because I prayed to understand my purpose. I was in a completely different career field. And in 1999, I felt like God spoke to me, and I stepped out on faith and started writing my first book and slowly began moving into fully what I do today. And so faith is the reason I do what I do. I have many opportunities to speak in the faith-based world, which I so appreciate. But my unique calling isn't just to the faith-based world. And so it's been really an interesting journey because probably more than half of my speaking opportunities are in the corporate world where I don't talk about my faith, and yet I still know I'm living out my purpose. So my faith has evolved over time. It's definitely connected with the mission and the work that I do, but I think more than anything it's helped me through my most difficult times. I don't know how I would have made it through some of the things I've been through in my life without understanding the power of God, the fact that I'm here for a reason, and that I'm meant to make an impact on others, and others are meant to make an impact on me. So my faith has played a big role in my life and will continue to. What I most want my readers and people who hear me speak and enjoy my messages to know is that resilience is a skill you can learn. And I don't care what you want to do in life, resilience is necessary because inevitably we face obstacles, we face disappointments, we don't always get what we want, we start to doubt ourselves, and resilience is what helps you to adapt to change and navigate setbacks and come back from those setbacks. And so no matter what it is that you want, and I can't think of anyone who doesn't want a happy life, who doesn't want to be successful, but also authentic. And if that's what you want, then you've got to find your courage, you've got to find your resilience. And so more than anything, that's what I teach. I want people to be happy. I want them to live fulfilling lives. But those things aren't possible without resilience.